I didn't pick an awesome quote for today, so maybe I'll have to come up with one while we're working. So I just wanted to remind you guys about book club this week. So if you're doing OBOB, you're going to be meeting at the 11:30, right, Miss Laws?
We changed it actually to 12 o'clock. I haven't heard back from everybody, but most people seem to think, actually it's, what time is it, you guys? 12, right? Yeah. 12 o'clock. And you can bring your lunch if you want to.
From the outside is the second floor.
Okay, so yeah, like she said, 12 o'clock. And then if you're not doing OBOB, then you're going to be with me at 12:30. So excited to hang out with you guys and see what you're all reading. And then I think Miss Laws was talking about some book bags that we're getting together, so we'll probably have some more.
Actually, yeah, so I have made book bags for all the clubs except for the OBOB club because they're reading OBOB books. But everybody else, I've made book bags with a whole bunch of books in them so that when your club wants to choose a book, you can grab your bag and choose the book. And I saw that your Spanish teacher is handing out books this Friday of your Spanish books. And so I'm going to take a box of these books over and leave them for you. And when you get your Spanish books, make sure that your parents also ask for the Laws books. I will make sure that your name is on them and that they're all ready to go.
Hey, Mom.
Okay. I'm going to also make sure that you've muted your sound. Thank you. And I'm going to change it to host only on the chat. Thanks, guys. All right, that's it.
Okay, so I thought this morning we might play a little bit of charades. So I don't know if you guys have played before, but what we're going to do for the Zoom version is that whoever is it in charades, I'll just send them a private message of what it is they're supposed to be acting out, and then they get to act it out, and you guys can guess. So you can either type stuff in the chat, or if we can do it without it getting too crazy, you guys can make your guesses out loud.
Why don't you have them raise their hands and just do it out loud, the guessing?
Okay, that's perfect. Sounds good. We'll go with that. So is there anybody who maybe wants to be it first? All right, let's go ahead. Subi can be it first. I will send her a secret note in the chat. Let's see, we're going to. Oh, I can type. There we go. So Subi has now got her action, and she is going to start acting it out for us. And then if you think you know what Subi's doing, you get to raise your hand. Oh, go ahead, Alex.
Running around like an animal or something.
Nope. Keep going, Subi. Oh, go ahead, Emma.
Like she's pushing something?
Yeah, that's a good guess. What do you think, Claire? Oh, Claire's very excited.
Is she like picking books up or something up from the floor?
Nope,
Like-
not exactly.
like
Go ahead, Deckard.
She's running around because she's trying to pick up the baby.
She's picking up the baby? Not exactly. Zong, what's your guess?
I think she's being a dung beetle because she's pushing around her dung.
Ooh, that's a very close guess. That's a good, she's kind of along the same line. She's rolling stuff into balls. So does that help? What do you think, Nora?
Oh.
Nora changed her mind. Okay, so Haven then. Narrative story, go ahead and grab that because we're going to be working on that again today. Nope, I do not know who Dove Cameron is. Is that someone who worked on the movie? Is it Abby? Nope, I'll have to find out that. Perfect. So yeah, once you've got your notebook and your pencil, hold it up in front of the screen so I know you're ready to roll. Thank you, Emma. Thank you, Natalie. Thank you, Clara and Raed. Alex, do you have something to write with? And a notebook? Thanks, buddy.
Look away.
Perfect. Thank you, Haven.
There's always a kid in the room, Ms. Watson, who reads through everything. I think that's our Alex. He's a nursery book reader. He's a under the desk reader and a sneak and read during class reader.
Flashlight under the sheets reader. Yeah, we've all been there.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and share, just because I love Google Slides, I'm gonna go ahead and share the one that I've made for what we're talking about today. So if you think that's gonna kick you out, try and turn your screen off. Might help you stay connected, but of course we're always recording this. So you guys can always go back and review it later on if you get booted out. All right, oh, just kidding, chat's not what I want, share screen. So we're going to keep talking about the personal narratives that we've been working on since about last week. And I just wanted to revisit some of the stuff that we've talked about so far, just to give you guys a little bit of a refresher. So the first thing we talked about was how to generate a story idea. And in that, Mrs. Laws created a T-chart where we talked about what our ideas might, or what our story ideas might be. And then I think on the other side, it was like the emotions and stuff that we were feeling in that moment, if I remember correctly. Mm-hmm. And one thing that was really important that we wanted to draw on is that when writing a personal narrative, we should choose a small moment in time. We don't want a huge, long story that's going to take ages to write about. I mean, as we saw from Miss Law's example, from the story with her brother and the pie, it was just a small moment, probably no more than 5 minutes, but she was able to stretch that out into pages of writing because she reminded us to think about the emotions behind it and the actual actions that were happening and what was going through her head. And she did that by planning what we called her story mountain, which was the idea of like the beginning of the story, the middle of the story, that rising tension or the heart of the story, and then the ending. And like she said, don't forget the emotions behind those actions. So we have the regular story mountain, but then we also kind of have that smaller mountain underneath it that's talking about how the person's feeling, what they're thinking, what's going through their head at the time. And we want to make our story where it takes from both of those. Man, sorry, everybody's getting booted. I can stop sharing if you want me to, Miss Laws, if you think that's better.
No, it's okay. I think it's all right. It's just going to happen.
And then the last thing we talked about yesterday was slowing down the story or slowing down the heart of the story. And that's just like we've talked about multiple times, focusing on emotions, focusing on thought, focusing on action to make a moment or that story really well-rounded. And like Miss Laws said, to kind of make your reader suffer, make them want to know more, make them want to know what's going on. Like sometimes for me, when I'm reading a book and I get really into it, I'll find myself skipping lines or trying to skip forward to get to that part. But then sometimes I miss something really important. And that's kind of a good example of like an author doing such a good job. You want to know what's happening. And so you get really excited and you start reading faster and faster. So that might be something you want to consider. Think about books that have made you kind of want to skip ahead or read really fast, feel your eyes kind of flying across the page. Because they make you want to know more and they make you want to know what's happening. So today we're going to talk about the idea of writing a good hook. Let's see, there we go. And so I wanted to first talk about exactly what a hook is. So a hook is the first or like the introduction to your story. So a strong story hook creates an enticing beginning. It's the first line or the opening paragraph of a story that's designed to capture the reader's interest and make them want to keep reading. And so it's one of the first things that a reader sees. You might look at the back of the book to kind of learn what it's about, or you might read the title of a chapter, but it's the hook, the beginning of the story that really makes you decide as a reader whether you want to keep going. So story hooks come in a lot of different forms, but most importantly, they're the first thing that a person reads. So I have a few different examples or different styles of hooks that you guys might consider. This is definitely not a comprehensive list. It doesn't cover everything, but they're just a few really good ones. So the first one that I wanted to show you guys is what they call a thought hook. And that's when the author tells you what the character is thinking, or maybe what they're feeling. They might be lonely, they might be mad, they might be scared. And so I actually have a couple of books that I wanted to share with you guys that I think show some good examples of these. So the first thought hook one comes from a book called Dragon's Milk, which was basically the Wings of Fire of my generation. So if anybody's looking for a good dragons book to get into, this one's by Susan Fletcher, who's actually a local author. She lives in Lake Oswego. Or she did, at least at the time. I'm not sure if she still lives in Lake Oswego, but I'm pretty sure she's still here in Oregon. All right, so at the very beginning, it just says, something was wrong, period. Kelder knew it the moment she awoke. She sat bolt upright and strained her senses against the dark. The loft smelled of mildew and damp hay. A cold breath of mist wrapped around her shoulders and neck. Something rustled in the room down below. So that's it right there, right at the beginning. Something is wrong. That's all we know. So now we want to know what's wrong and what is she going to do about it? So that's just an example of just a few short sentences that showed us what the character was thinking right at the beginning. The author definitely touched on some different sensations. So we knew what was going on in her head, but we also knew how she was feeling physically. The fact that she couldn't see, she was straining to see in the dark. We know what she was smelling. So that's kind of a good use of both a thought hook and a description hook. So down here, description hooks are ones that use the five senses to paint a really vivid picture of what's happening in the story. So the next one I wanted to cover is what we call action hooks. And these ones are used to place the character and the reader right in the middle of the action. Something is happening and it's very, usually it can be kind of dangerous or scary. So for that one, I picked James Patterson's Maximum Ride. This one might be, I think this is maybe for grades a little bit older than you guys, but I don't have a lot of kids books yet. I haven't built up my library the way Miss Laws has. So I still got some work to do. So part one just says, the funny thing about facing imminent death is that it really snaps everything else into perspective. Take right now, for instance. Run, come on, run. You know you can do it. I gulped deep lungfuls of air. My brain was on hyperdrive. I was racing for my life. My one goal was to escape, and nothing else mattered. So now you already know something serious is happening to the main character in this book. We don't even know who they are yet. We haven't heard their name or who they are. But we already know something's happening to them. And me as a reader, I want to know what's happening. Are they in danger and how are they going to get out of danger? I'm already hooked. So our next one is called a dialogue hook, which is where an author might use speech or a conversation that they put the reader right into, and it piques their interest. It makes them want to know more. So for that one, I chose House of Many Ways, which is by Diana Wayne Jones. She also wrote, for those of you who are Studio Ghibli fans, she wrote the Howl's Moving Castle book that Hayao Miyazaki turned into a really awesome movie. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. The book is also really good. All right. So for this one, it's called Chapter 1, in which Chairman is volunteered to look after a wizard's house. So she's already piqued your interest just with the chapter title alone. But in the intro, she says, Chairman must do it, said Aunt Semperinia. We can't leave Great Uncle William to face this on his own. Your Great Uncle William, said Miss Baker, isn't he? She coughed and lowered her voice because this, to her mind, was not quite nice. Isn't he a wizard? Of course, said Aunt Semperinia, but he has, and here she too lowered her voice, he has growth, on his insides, and only the elves can help him. So already we've been introduced to a couple of characters. We know from their conversation that wizards aren't seen as good in society, and maybe we want to know why that is. And we also know something is wrong with Great Uncle William. I'm not even sure who Great Uncle William is, but we know something's wrong with him, and only the elves can fix it. And then we already talked about this description hook, which is just one where you use the five senses. Another interesting one is what we call a question or statement hook. And this is where you ask the reader a question or make a statement that reflects maybe what you learned from this experience, or you might present an idea that maybe not everyone thinks is right. And it kind of entices the reader because they want to know why it is you think or feel that way. So for this one, I pulled from a book called The True Confessions of Charlotte Doyle. And so this one's really interesting because she starts out with, before the first chapter even begins, she starts out with what she says is an important notice or an important warning to the reader. So in her intro, it says, not every 13-year-old girl is accused of murder, brought to trial, and found guilty. But I was just such a girl, and my story is worth relating, even if it did happen years ago. Be warned, however, that this is no story of a bad boy. Know what Katie did. If strong ideas and action offend you, read no more. Find another companion to share your idle hours. For my part, I intend to tell the truth as I lived it. So like she said right there in the beginning, not every 13-year-old girl is accused of murder, brought to trial, and found guilty. I want to know what happened to Charlotte Doyle. Did she actually murder someone? Was she guilty? And what happened to her? That's an excellent one. The last one I wanted to talk about was called a sound hook. And that, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen so I can see your guys' faces. Oh, I guess I can't see your faces because your screens are awesome. You can leave them off if you want to. So the last one is what they call a sound hook, and it draws on this word, which is called an onomatopoeia. Has anybody ever heard that word before? Does anyone know what it means?
Yeah.
Nice. Okay, Abby, do you want to maybe tell us what it means?
I haven't I've heard this word, and I did something about it in 3rd grade with my mom when she came in. When she helped out in my 3rd grade class, in the 2 3rd grade classes, but I don't remember what it means.
That's okay. Does anyone else know? Oh, go ahead, Emily.
An onomatopoeia is like when something happens, like when you hear a sound, like splash or crack or bang, like that's an onomatopoeia.
No, very good. Yeah, so like a sound, and the word describes the sound or actually mimics the sound that you're hearing. So it doesn't have a meaning on its own, but like it's purely associated with the sound that something makes. So like she said, like splat. Like splat doesn't really have a meaning of its own, but you know what splat is because you know that the sound something makes when it splats. So that might be an interesting way. You can use a sound hook, maybe some weird sound. It makes me think about, I don't know if all of you have seen the Coraline recordings, but there's a scene in Coraline where she describes the sound that the other mother's hand makes when it's scraping on the window, and she kind of calls it this creak, creak, creak sound. That's like an onomatopoeia because it doesn't mean anything outside of this context of the other mother's hand scratching on the window trying to get inside. So that's our last one. And then the last thing I wanted to kind of share is that the most important part to remember is that you want to make it interesting. So there are definitely times when people use hooks that aren't always the most interesting. So like some that I've seen is someone saying, well, I'm going to tell you about this, or do you like Disneyland? I like Disneyland too. I'm going to tell you about the time I went to Disneyland. Have you ever been to, I don't know, Oaks Park? I'm going to tell you about when I went to Oaks Park. Last summer I did this, like, hi, my name is Katie, and I'm going to tell you about the walk I took with my dog this morning. That's true. That's you telling them what's going to happen in the story, but that doesn't always mean it's the most interesting and engaging way to get your readers to want to know what happened on your walk. So just keep that in mind. So I think what we're going to do is maybe group up into some.
I've got it all made, so they're all partnered up.
Okay. Yeah, so we're going to go ahead and split up into like a pair. And we're going to give you guys, what do you think, Miss Laws, like 4 minutes?
I think what you should do first is let's let everybody have a little bit of think time for 1 minute. Think about your story that you're writing, friends. And I want you to think about how you're going to start that story. Maybe you already started it, but thinking about these hooks, what kind of a hook could you think of? One that starts with a sound, bang, one that starts with a thought. Some of you already have written really cool hints at trouble to come that makes people want to keep reading. But how are you going to hook your reader into your story and make them interested? And then, yeah, Ms. Watson, so you're going to put them into breakout rooms with one other person and they're going to write in the air, right? Explain that to them.
Yeah, so we'll go ahead and do a few minutes of think time first where we can all just kind of independently think about which hooks we liked and how we might engage those in our story. And then we'll go ahead and pair up and we can talk about those in our groups. So what I'll do is I will share my screen again so that you guys can see what some of those options were that we discussed. And we'll just take 5 minutes to do some silent writing, maybe pick 2 or even 2 or 3 of the prompts that you guys, or of the hooks that you guys really liked or that you think might fit in with your story, and go ahead and write those down, and then we'll share them as a group. So I will go ahead and at 9:35, we'll go ahead and split up into our pairs, and we can share some of what we talked about. So take 5 minutes.
And grab your notebook and start writing down your hook so that you can read it to your partner.
Perfect.
We're getting kicked out again. I think we better stop the share.
Oh, okay.
Because it's messing up my breakout rooms.
Oh, sorry.
Well, it's just, if kids get kicked out, then I have to reassign them. Okay. So let's see here. Yeah, so the way the breakout rooms is, so you guys are all, I should see all of you, Gerard, with a pen or pencil, and you should have your notebook open or you're typing and you're writing on your story. You're writing a hook for it. And you might even write more than one. You might try one with sound and then start another one with an action or a thought. Okay, I gotta see. I don't know how to add these guys to their breakout rooms.
Sorry.
No, that's okay, not your fault. Let's try this. And then we'll start the breakout rooms in just a minute when I get them. 1, 2, 6, there we go.
Ooh, Zong also said, what about a cliffhanger? Which I think is kind of, Miss Laws kind of talked about that. Sometimes we use what we call, oh goodness, why can't I remember the word?
Hint at
Forward, like forward thinking.
Mm-hmm.
What's it called? Where you like hint at something that's going to happen later. Foreshadowing, that's the word, goodness. Where you're kind of hinting about something that's going to happen later on. So cliffhangers, or yeah, using foreshadowing. So looks like some of you use that in your writing so far. That's also an excellent option.
All right, you guys, we're going to open up the breakout rooms, and your job in breakout room is, even if you haven't finished writing it, you're going to say it out loud the way you're going to start your story. So one of you is going to do your turn and tell how you're going to start your story, and actually say the actual words. Don't tell it, show it. And then the other one's going to go, and you're going to listen to each other's stories. When they're done, should they come back or chat a little bit about their stories and ask questions, Ms. Watson?
I think they can chat a little bit and ask questions, and then if they have any questions,
stay in your room and ask your partner some questions about their story that they're writing. This is the same story we've been writing the whole time. All right, here we go. You're actually assigned to be in a room with Subi. Is that okay?
It's fine with me.
Okay. There we go. If you did not get in a room, let me know, because I might have messed up. Unassigned. Oh, there's a whole bunch. Okay. Assigned to breakout room 3. Uh, 5. Okay. Gerard, are you there? Gerard. Hello, where are you, buddy? Oh, there he is.